Captain's Log, Episode 51. This week's episode of the Beer Vengers podcast is sponsored by the Beer and Cheese Collective, formerly known as Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, located at 35-11 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens. Now featuring the full array of the 2021 Goose Island Bourbon County brand stouts. Get them while supplies last, because when they're gone, they're gone. Until, next year, 2022. Enjoy the eclectic array of craft beer, artisanal cheeses, and specialty grocery items at the Beer and Cheese Collective. New name, same great place. On this installment, we welcome back returning California Beer Venger, Brew Guy Phil. Learn all about Captain and the Beer Wonders' trips to California and how Phil served as our beeritual guide. Remember to like, star, and subscribe whenever that feels appropriate. And send us your emails at thebeervengers@gmail.com if you have any questions, suggestions, or if you just like hearing us talk about you on the show. And now, without further ado, please enjoy episode 51, California, Beer We Come.
Well, we're the Beer Vengers, Beer Vengers, Beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.
Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Astoria, Queens, I am Captain Porter Brownstout.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location in the County of Kings, it is I, the Beer Wonder.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Central California, it's Brew Guy Phil.
And we are the Beer
Vengers. That was a really good one, actually.
Yeah. I think we're all in sync right away. We're not even living together.
I love it.
That's right. We are the Beer Vengers. You're the Beer Vengers. We got a really exciting show coming up. Also, before we get into that, I want to welcome our returning Beer Venger, Brew Guy Phil. We haven't had you on in a while, so it's good to have you back. And Brew Guy Phil recently gave me a lot of wonderful advice for something we're going to be talking about very soon. Actually, we don't need to tease it. We're going to be talking about California. We will still certainly be talking about, we are still in New York, but Brew Guy Phil is in California, and Beer Wonder and I recently took trips out there, and he was a wonderful advisor, and so we're going to talk you through a lot of that. Anything else we need to say up top, Beer Wonder?
No, just that this is I'm going to call it's a bi-coastal episode, I feel like,
It is,
Captain.
it
It's
is.
very
Yeah.
exciting. We're getting the East and the West, and everyone has something to contribute, and I'm very excited to share all of my adventures out there as well.
Excellent. Well, then, without further ado, let's get to the pours, shall we? What are we
Yes,
waiting for?
I don't know. And honestly, it's been a minute since we've had a special guest returner. I mean, we had Huck last week, but Huck is just part of the show every week. So Brew Guy Phil, since you are technically living just a little bit behind us by hours, because it's a little earlier where you are than it is where we are, I feel like daylight's burning for you, so we should probably let you go first.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
Brew Guy Phil, what do you have today?
So I recently moved to the South Bay, and so this is from Humble Sea. This is Fog and Jerry, and they always have the craziest, most punniest names for their beers. And this is a double dry hop foggy double IPA at 8%.
Ooh,
Very nice.
that sounds
And
phenomenal.
It's 12 in the afternoon, but I'm off today, and I'm doing a birthday beer share later this evening, so I might as well get one down early.
Well, happy birthday, Brew Guy Phil.
And
Thank you.
Oh, it is your birthday? Is that what we're celebrating?
It'll be my birthday. Well, I'm celebrating today, but my birthday is on Saturday.
All right.
Yeah, Phil, would you hold that up next to the can so we can get a good look at that?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
It looks like orange juice. It really
Yeah.
does. Is that what it looks like in where you are?
Exactly. This is
Oh,
exactly how it looks. A straw, kind of orangish straw color.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, good head retention, and just it reeks like cantaloupe and mango and a little bit of banana in there. It's nice.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, what do you have here today, Beer Wonder?
Well, I am very excited to be drinking a.
Sponsored pour.
A sponsored pour from the Beer and Cheese Collective
I
at
know.
35-11 Ditmars, formerly Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars.
I know,
Our
and
sponsor.
you know, it's I'm very excited about this beer, but I'm also very excited about this glass that came with this beer. Digging the new logo, so make sure that you swing by and grab yourself a beer and some cheese there, or additional other snacks. But I'm another. This beer today also comes from the County of Queens as well. It's from our good friends at Rockaway Brewing Company. And it is their Zombie Juice Black India Pale Ale that looks kind of
Ooh,
like
very
this,
nice.
made for the Rockaway Film Festival. So another kind of fun outside collaboration there. Notably, it has an ABV of 6.66, which seems only right for a beer named Zombie Juice. So let's see how it looks.
Wonderful.
It's a freshie.
It's a beautiful crack, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Oh dear.
It's a
I know.
lovely color.
Very dark, very brown. Good bubble action happening. The head is growing nice and slow. And it still has that nice juicy flavor, but certainly does not look like what you'd expect for an IPA on there. So
Oh, that's
excited
great. I
about
love
this one.
black IPAs.
Very cool.
They
Head
excellent.
sticking around nice too. Oh, can't wait for this.
Well, when I was in Southern California, primarily in the San Diego area, I brought a few different beers back with me, and I've been trying to figure out which one to start with.
Mm.
One that I got this hasn't been in the New York area for a while that I love is the Victory at Sea from Ballast Point. I was really
Yep.
glad to get that one again. I also went to AleSmith, and I
Mhm.
had this special version of their Speedway Stout with Mexican dark chocolate, sea salt, and Mexican coffee. That's a wonderful one. And when I was at McKellar, I got their version of the Black is Beautiful.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I'm having none of these right now. I'm having this one from a nice small family brewery. I wound up finding myself at on the last full day that I was there. I was moving between cities, and I knew I had some time to kill before I could check into my hotel. And so I was just looking on the map and googling things, and I found this nice little family brewery called Jacked Up. And they and had a nice conversation with all of them there, or at least some of them. And before, and I was talking about the podcast, and I said, "Hey, can I give you a beer that you can have on there?" And so he like made this directly from the draft lines,
Oh,
this
nice.
beer to go stout from Jacked Up. So straight from their drafts, and 3 weeks later, here we are doing it on the show.
Nice.
Very, it's just you can see a nice head with this one.
Yeah,
there
let's
we
check
are.
that out. Oh gosh,
Ooh.
nice and
What's
dark.
the style?
Yeah, it just calls itself stout.
Okay,
Um,
nice.
It's a 10%er, but they did not call it an imperial or foreign export. But there you go.
All right.
Because I remember I had a conversation with young Theo when I was there, and I said, "Oh, so is it an imperial?" It's like, "Well, we don't call it that." I'm like, okay, that's fine. All right, gentlemen, Beer Vengers all.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's very smooth. Very nice.
Mm.
That's a nice Tuesday afternoon sip there.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like you've got an early lunch and we've got an early happy hour, and it's day drinking all around.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Well, I want to know. So it did look like orange juice, and you said it had beautiful straw color. It had good head retention, which makes me think that there is a decent amount of protein in there. Tell me about this beer, because I might want one.
Yeah, the grain is really what comes through for
Mhm.
me, which is odd for a double dry hop, double
Mhm.
IPA. But I love that about Humble Sea
Yeah.
is the hops don't really take away from the grain bill, which I, as a home brewer, really appreciate because before I started home brewing, I never really considered the grains too much. Yeah, it was malty, but I never was like, oh, is it two row? Is it Pilsner?
Right.
Is it Carapils? What are they putting in there? And although I don't know exactly what this grain bill is, you can
Mhm.
taste the grain and it's delicious.
Nice. So more grain than hops for an IPA. That's always an intriguing combo.
It's bitter and the
Okay.
aroma. It's bitter and the aroma is definitely hoppy, but you can get the flavor profile is nice and bready, which is really welcome for me.
Nice. That sounds pretty delicious. Well, for a black IPA that I've got here, this one is quite the journey, because it absolutely starts off nice and roasty, sort of at the top. I mean, with this dark color, one would expect it to have that really good roasted characteristic. But for a beer that looks as dark as it does, this is not going to be a Captain style pour because it is got a very light mouthfeel. It's
Oh
very
yeah.
sort of smooth or very kind of watery in there. There's not a heaviness to it that kind of comes off the front. So the body is kind of surprising in that lightness.
Mhm.
And then while it does have sort of a gentle floral note, where I really get like a citrus quality is at the very end. So it
Yeah.
starts roasty and then it's kind of refreshing and then you get a nice fruit finish. I mean, so I guess it is sort of like the perfect horror movie. Like, you get startled and then you kind of relax a little bit into it, and then they pack another punch at the surprise at the very end.
Cool.
I'll
Do you
take
get
it.
much roasted malt character, or did they keep that at bay?
Oh no, that's at the very beginning for me.
Okay.
It really kicks with roastiness at the top.
Okay.
That's where I noticed that really off the bat.
Got
Um,
it.
and then it goes away as things lighten up, but then the citrus kicks in afterwards. It really is. It's a whole 3 act play.
Wonderful.
This stout, it's got a really nice. I mean, it's just a really solid, chocolatey, full bodied. Just it's a little. I mean, a little of that like almost like chicory taste to it, but it's really really good. It's just a really solid non adjunct stout. In fact, this is one of those places. This brewery, everything they had that like very like minimalist names, like they have at
Mm,
that place we went to recently, Ebbs in Brooklyn.
yep.
But yeah, it was the way I wound up there was I was getting finished in Lake Elsinore, which is I was there up there for a wedding, and I was heading back to San Diego because I was flying out of there the next day. And I'm just looking on the map, and I'm like, oh, here's a good brewery. Oh, they're closed on Mondays. Here's a good.
Mm,
Okay, finally, I found Jacked Up. I was like, okay, sure, that looks like it's kind of on the way. I'll go do that one. And I went there, and it was like, a couple. I think there was maybe one other person there when I first got there, and there were never more than 2 people at the bar because it's a Monday afternoon. So I got to chat a lot. When it's such a family business, the first guy I was talking to was Michael, and we had a really nice chat about it. He was saying that like it's the place is pretty busy some of the times, and even like on a weekday evening,
mm.
which actually surprised me because I hadn't been anywhere in the San Diego area that seemed busy on a weekday evening. They were mostly closing at 8 or 9 o'clock. Well, actually, maybe more like 9 or 10 o'clock. But if you're in there at like 8:30, like there's not really many people around, so that was
Mm.
kind of cool. And then his wife came out and had to take him off because they were going to pick up some kind of a whiskey barrel or something or other.
Oh.
And she was telling me all about this great dragon fruit IPA they have on there that I guess it won some kind of award. I was looking
Hmm.
it up. I couldn't find it. But one thing I hadn't really, she was like telling me all about exactly what color the dragon fruit. I think they like to get it when it's pink rather
Oh,
than more of
okay.
a deeper red.
Hmm.
And I said, yeah, it's really interesting because we don't really see dragon fruit drinks on the East Coast. She said, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same reason for her why they're probably never going to make like a blueberry wheat beer because they
Right.
just can't get the blueberries when they're fresh enough there. And so they took off, and so their son Theo took care of me from there on in, and we had a nice conversation. He's
Oh,
been
nice.
he's been looking to come out here on a road trip, and I got to give him a little bit of advice on exactly. He was worried about having a car in New York. I said, no,
Oh,
you'll be
yeah.
fine. I said, just find somewhere to park it, and you won't need a car in New York. It's
Oh,
something.
he wanted a car in New York. I was gonna say, oh no,
Well,
don't do that.
he's not moving to New York. He's just looking to do a road trip,
Right.
and he was just concerned about how when he brings his car into New York, what that's
Oh,
going to be like. I said just find somewhere
you
to
leave
park it.
you leave that in Jersey. You leave that in
Yeah,
Jersey.
yeah.
They do cars over there. We don't do cars here.
That's very good. Yeah, just like leave it in Jersey, and then like park somewhere near the like have a hotel like near the PATH train or something like that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you can just go into York. You don't have to worry about your car at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a 24-year-old, which I know that's how old he was
Oh.
because I was telling him that I'd been in New York since 1997, and he
Goodness.
said that's the year I was born.
Oh my gosh. Ouch.
So Yeah,
Oh
but no,
boy.
but then so we're talking, and I'm talking about the podcast, and he said, if I said, yeah, I'll be talking about you. Oh, if I give you a beer, can you talk about that? I was like, yeah, I mean, by give, he still charged me for it, but I was really glad to have it, and I'm very glad it's right here. So thank you to the
Nice.
whole family there at Jacked Up for taking such good care of me and for making such wonderful beer.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, right? Most breweries I've noticed are closed Monday, Tuesday, and it makes sense. You got to be open on the weekends, so.
Yeah. I mean, in
But I'm
San Diego
grateful for
proper, I was able to find some good stuff on Monday and Tuesday the previous week, but
right,
yeah.
right, yeah. So, man, San Diego, where did you start? This list you sent me, is that in chronological order?
It is in chronological order.
Okay.
I was there basically. I was there Sunday through Thursday of that week, and then although I managed to hit places pretty much everywhere except for Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was the day of the wedding, and Sunday was the wedding after party.
Okay.
So I managed to fit something in pretty much every other day I was there, including the day I was flying back. They have a
Mm.
really nice airport bar at San Diego.
Cool. Yes.
And it's funny because some places you'll go and, like, for instance, Cincinnati has incredible beer, but a horrible airport bar. And one of
I've
those
never
things where,
been.
like,
Yeah.
where they sort of suck you into it because the word craft is in the name, and you go up there and it's, you've got a flight and can't really go to any other bar, and you think, okay, maybe they'll have some interesting local stuff, and it's all InBev crap.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it was really nice to see such a good. But that's, of course, I'm jumping to the end there.
Right.
Yeah. What?
Well, I was
uh,
going to say, Captain, before because you and I we both traveled to California, but we did it at different times. So we both
That's
had sort
right.
of
That's a
different set
little
of.
why for our faithful fans out there. That's why. Thank you for being patient, waiting for us to get some
Yep.
new episodes on the air because we were so busy with all our traveling for about a month there, we didn't have time to put any more shows out. So we're
Yeah.
happy to be back doing this.
So, and while the captain was down, I believe, at an event in San Diego or San Diego area, I was a little closer to Brugge, Phil. I was in what some might call northern, but probably are going to call more central California. So
Yeah.
just above the Bay Area. With Who Wrote This Shit, which some of you may have watched along with on Monday nights on the interwebs. We had our first live shows out there. So it was an interesting sort of like next to each other, kind of almost parallel experience.
That's right. I think I left town the day after you got back or something
That's
like
right.
that.
That's right. So we got the whole state covered because I got that sort of central northern part. You've got the southern part, and Brugge, I feel, has the whole damn state. So
Yes.
today is love for California, clearly.
All things California you'll get from us today. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh man. So who was there first?
So I showed up first.
Okay, and then
Yes.
you left and he came in. Okay,
And then
that
I
makes
left
sense.
and Captain came in. And Captain did a little bit more. I mean, I was there doing a show, so I had a little bit less time to go and explore the scene. In fact, I didn't wind up going to any breweries while I was there. In fact, because we were performing at a lot of venues that did have alcohol, so I was excited to try things, at the venues where we were operating. But since Captain, you were at some breweries, I'm curious if there was one that was like an early standout for you.
An early standout. I
Hmm.
mean, there's just so many. I chose the area to stay in mostly. Well, I mean, my initial thought was some of my favorite breweries were right in this area called Miramar.
Hmm.
And I immediately reached out to Phil and I said, "Hey, is this a good place for base of operations?" And he said, "Yeah." And then because I'd mentioned like two or three breweries I wanted, and then he sent me like a list of 20 that with various rankings. Like he said, these are must dos. These are all good if you can make it, not essential, and
Hmm.
many things in between. And so it was really great. Miramar is just one of those areas. It's very industrial. But despite that, there are some breweries that have some pretty amazing presentation.
Yes, that was kind of my stomping ground. When I say growing up, it seems so long ago. I'm about to be 35 on Saturday, but yeah, like when I started drinking, that was my little stomping ground area, Miramar. I'm from like the Mira Mesa area of San Diego,
Hmm.
and there's so many great breweries tucked into that little area, and I think it's like more of a military base than anything else, and there's very heavy military presence in the area. but there's a lot of really successful breweries in the area. And so the first one on the list I see here is White Labs, which
Yes.
is essential if you're a brewer. Have you ever
Yeah.
had an experience like that before?
No, I hadn't. Yeah, that was I had just gotten into town, and I got my rental car. Found out I had to spend more on it than I initially had, which is always fun. Because you think. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I got to my hotel, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's we're ready to check you in an hour or so." So I said, "Well, what's the closest of the places Phil told me about?" And
Mhm.
I believe White Labs was 3/10 of a mile from my hotel. So I went over there. Um, and the bartender was there, and then there was a guy sitting next to me who worked at Stone Brewery. So
Mm.
it's very like that industry heavy crowd. And the thing that struck me right away was that since they are so into developing their own yeasts, that all of the beers that are listed have the number of yeast, or because they're all the yeast. They don't have like names like beers do. They just have numbers. So here's this one has yeast 686, and this beer has yeast 723, and et cetera. And so that was cool. Had a nice conversation. Got a lot of advice from both of them as far as other things that to inform the rest of my week. Also had a couple of really good beers there.
Nice.
Well, I was going to
Yeah.
ask Phil, do you use their yeasts? Do you have a connection to that side of their product?
I have used it in the past. I have moved on to other yeasts. In fact, I really like cloning yeast, which is you
Mhm.
take a can of beer that you want to use for a clone and you kind of sit it out at room temperature for a few weeks and then pitch that into a yeast starter, and you
Mm.
can actually grow yeast from the can to brew that style. So I do that a lot because it's cheaper. But yeah, I've used White Labs before. And for those of you who aren't familiar with White Labs, when you go in and you order a beer, you're ordering a style. So you order like an IPA, and they'll bring you 4 or 5 different tasters with all the different yeasts that they would use. They'd use a Belgian yeast or a British yeast or a West Coast yeast or an American yeast. So you get to really see the difference in the beer. Everything's kept the same. The only variable is the yeast. So it helps you as a brewer kind of lock in those qualities that you might be after.
Right, because when because we had you on before. We talked about you've been a home brewer from way back,
Yes.
and so yeah. So I understand that when you go to a home brew store, most of the yeast you see is from White Labs, as well as a lot of breweries use their yeast as well.
Exactly. Yeah, we're pretty well known. There's a few other companies too, but yeah, White Labs is definitely one of the industry finest.
Yeah,
They are, in fact, the yeast that I used in my brewing adventures. So I was
See,
excited
there
to
you
hear that you had
go.
been
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I think I just had so many good conversations when I was there that I can't tell you what beer I had when that's ultimately I care for all the beer vendors who want their information from me here, and I do my best to do some record keeping. But as a human being, I find that more often than not that if the experience trumps being able to keep records, the experience always comes first. And so if I'm having a nice conversation and I can't find a subtle time to take a picture of my beer and scribble something down, I don't. Similarly speaking, whenever I see a few of these places where I had mostly flights, and
Mm.
anytime I have a flight, there's no record because I just want to dive in as soon as I get these 5 beers there in front of me, and I'm not going to write down 5 different names. Not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like we were saying, Miramar it's pretty much like the central beer hub for most of California or San Diego. And when the captain hit me up, he's like, "Where should I go in San Diego?" Like I said, we hit about 20 different. Send him a list of 20 different breweries, and so he hit up. Let's see here: Ballast Point, Pure Project, Alesmith, McKellar, and Society. Those are all within that same area, like really great breweries. Belching
Now,
Beaver, I think
is that
also.
pronounced society or societe?
Societe.
I wasn't sure. It
I
actually
don't
and
know.
it has an e on the end of it. That's how they
Right,
spell the
right.
name of it. Yeah.
I've always just said Society.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's how you
Um,
spelled it when you first sent it to me too. So I had to like, what's he talking about
right.
here? And I figured it
Yeah,
out.
you have to throw the little thing on the E.
Yeah.
Great Belgian beers though. They do a really great program. A lot of different Belgian styles of beer coming out of there. Good IPAs too.
Yeah. very predictably, I had a stout when I was there, because
Why are
well,
we
well,
not surprised?
here's essentially what I mean. There were places where if I had like more than one, I might if I have a place where there weren't any stouts, I would experiment a little beyond that. But when I got to that place, let's see, I'm looking at my notes here. I'm trying to see where I have that one. Yeah, I feel like the day I went to Societe was a day that I was kind of deliberately scaling things back. My first 2 days, I kind of hit it hard, and I was like, okay, I need a sort of. I was thinking about the next day going to Old Town, but I realized a lot of places I was looking at there were closed on Tuesday, so I said, okay, Tuesday's going to be a chill day. And so like I started out at that. What was that great burger place you told me about, Phil?
The Friendly.
The Friendly, yeah. I went there, had a great beer there. You had told me about the Belching Beaver not too far from there.
Right.
But unfortunately, that location is currently undergoing some kind of renovations. So really the only places I went brewery wise that day were North Park and Societe. Now, North Park, you had said that's one of your top three in the whole San Diego area, so I had to try
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that I had a really good triple IPA. I believe that was their Citra Collider.
Oh yes, they do the Collider series, which is Lupulin Collider, Citra Collider, Galaxy Collider, and it's just all their different hop series. They'll do single hops. They've done like Lupulin powder, cryo powder hops. It's intense, hop fused, you name it, they're doing it.
Yeah, I did a combination that week of if I wanted to just let myself go, I would go around with a lift, but I would occasionally go, okay, I can drive here and have one beer, and that's kind of what I did there. So I told the guy behind the counter when I saw they didn't have any of my style there, and I was a little out of my depth, and I said, I think I'm only going to have one beer here. If I only have one, which one should it be? And that's the one he directed me towards.
Nice.
And then I went to Societe right after that. I will say, I'm sure everything you said is absolutely right, but the Russian Imperial Stout is also pretty awesome. It's
Nice.
called the Butcher.
Okay.
Just one of those really good kind of high ABV but really smooth beers, which I'm always impressed when they manage that. So,
And that was just a regular straight stout, not a barrel aged, no adjuncts.
well, it was Russian Imperial, so
Okay.
it meant it was kind of a
Bold.
high ABV. Yeah,
Very high
maybe
ABV.
not quite. I'm gonna look on the list here, and okay, here we go. It is a okay, it's a 9.666%.
Those sixes coming in
It comes
handy
back to us
today.
again. Yeah, yeah. It's like
Exactly.
that's how it's listed on Untapped is 9.666%. So yeah. So definitely you'd say it would be closer to Imperial, but it was also, yeah, you're right, no adjuncts as far as I could tell. Just
Mhm.
a really, really solid Russian Imperial Stout. So in fact, and I think if I weren't driving, I probably would have tried one of the things that were more in their wheelhouse. But like I said, that was my day where I was sort of I had already decided the next couple of days I could go a little heavier, but I had Sunday and Monday. I was just I'd abused myself so much I had to back off a little bit. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
the other place I went that day was that another place you told me about. I didn't put this on the list. Where is it? The Common Theory Public House.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
So I went there and I wound up having a beer from North Coast.
Yes.
The Rudrick's Red Seal.
Yeah, they're up
Um,
here. That's Mendocino. Yeah, that's Northern California.
Yeah, they have a lot of good stuff. This is one that I'd never seen on the East Coast, so I decided to give that one a try. And now that we're back talking about what's in Northern, I feel like we've been neglecting Beer Wonders experience.
Yeah, well, I mean,
yeah.
I had some interesting experiences. So, I was there for those of you who may watch the show, Chelsea Bierce, who is our center square on, who wrote this shit, it was sort of hosting us. And we had hotel rooms and things, but the very first day that we showed up, of course, we went over to her place and we hung out with her for a little while. And she served me a really unique beer that I was just very, very excited about. Now
Do tell.
it was a bottle. It was, I believe, bottle conditioned. It came in this really lovely, sort of darker, kind of more of a. I was a little surprised that the bottle was more greenish than I would have expected, and it had this really kind of like reddish tint. And I believe that it was referred to as a Zinfandel.
So, this was it was a beer that was maybe aged in Zinfandel barrels.
No, I don't think it was aged in the. I mean, I think it was conditioned in the bottle. Is the sense I was
I,
getting.
that might be, one of those Napa Sonoma beers I keep hearing a lot about. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, well, I was a little surprised because they did mention that the fermentable sugars were actually grapes, so I was a little
Oh, that's
confused.
wine. That's
Yeah, I
you
think you were
throwing
having
Oh,
a
some wine
wine. I
out
think that was a
there.
wine.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will say it was very good, and we were
I know.
in
I know.
the.
There's so many genres out there. It's easy to get confused
At this
sometimes. So
point,
yeah.
it gets a little difficult, but I will say it was very good, and and I was
Uncarbonated.
very very low carbonation, yeah, very kind of a little sweeter than I had anticipated, an interesting tannic note that I'm not used to, but it was definitely very exciting, and nice to be, and they said locally produced, so I was glad to be supporting the local alcohol industry there,
Yes,
even if it
definitely.
it may have been
It was a wine.
it was a wine. I think
You
that
had a
one was
wine.
a wine. I think
It
that was
was
a
a
wine.
wine.
Yeah, I think that was a
Yeah.
wine. Okay. Well, so that was certainly one of my first notable experiences. But Captain, were there other spots that you thought really like sung to you that you want to?
Oh, so many. Well, actually, I know Phil's one. I probably should have sent you the master list I sent to Phil. Phil, anything jumping out at you on the list I sent you there?
Well, so if you like the stouts and the barrels and the adjuncts, what did you think of Modern Times? Did you get your
Oh,
stout fix there?
Modern Times was fantastic. I did have at one point. I think I'd been having so many like tasting like flights and such. I got there and I said, I want a full pour, and I wound up getting the. Oh, here we go. Oh, I got their Benevolent Demon, which is
Oh man,
it's like an imperial porter, really
yes,
really good. Had some nice a flight of something there. I can't remember exactly what it was. Like I said, I took the picture, but I don't remember the names of it. But it was one of these things where like something had kicked, and I looked up and there's okay, there are 4 different things I want, and I can't have all 4 of them, so this is the perfect time for a
right,
flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. I wound up going there because I had been hearing about that Old Town was a fun place to hang out in.
yeah,
So I took a lift down to Old Town, and I got this was one of my earlier starting days. I think I probably got there around 11, and I was like hanging around there a little bit longer because I knew Modern Times wasn't open till noon or perhaps afterwards. So I went there. I went to this cool place called Rose's Tasting Room. That's right in the midst
Cool.
of all the stuff there, and I got well, I never made it to this brewery, but the one I had there was from like Little Miss Brewing. Do you know them,
oh
Phil?
yeah, yeah. I know them. They're in North Park area also. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wound up getting this what they call it their Blitzkrieg mango. See, this is funny. I wrote these initials down, and I thought I knew what it meant. It's initials are the same as Beer Wonders,
Oh.
and it's a Berliner Weiss.
Oh, that
Oh,
makes sense.
okay,
Yep,
nice.
that'll do it.
Yeah, it was a really really nice flavor to it,
Berliner
and
with mango. That actually sounds very good.
and in fact, they also did a really interesting rim with it.
Mm.
Sort of a spiced rim. It wasn't salt. It wasn't
Ooh.
like a honey, cinnamon, sugar kind of thing. It was a. Here's the funny thing. I asked the guy what it was twice, and the words just didn't mesh with me. There's some kind of local thing, and then a friend of mine actually was the night runner mentioned something when I posted a picture of it. I said, "Yeah, it's some kind of no, it's not what you think it is, but it is like it's sort of like a spicy thing." And then the person from Rose's Tasting Room actually said what it was called on there. So if anyone wants
Oh.
to take that deep dive and find that beer and find that running conversation, you will know what that spiced rim was. But yeah, I went there, and then I went to. I did finally make it to Modern Times, and really really nice experience there too.
Yeah.
I had my first beer sitting out there. They have a really nice outdoor space, and then I had the flight sitting at the bar, and really good. And then I walked up to that market, the Liberty Market.
Yes, they're amazing. They got some good stuff going on there.
Is that a
Yeah,
food and beer venue, or what? What else? What's
it's
there?
like kind of a mall. Would you
Huge
call it that, Phil?
mall. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a mall.
Mm-hmm.
But
Uh,
back to the watermelon and the
oh
rim, I
yeah.
think it's called tagine. It's a very
That's
common Mexican spice that they put on watermelon and some margarita rims. It's really good.
yeah. It was delicious.
Yes.
Really really liked it.
But
Um,
Liberty Market, yes, it's the mall, definitely.
Okay.
I went there specifically because Stone was there. And I mean, I know from what I hear, Phil, you were telling me that the place at Escondido is just sort of massive, right?
Yeah, it's very much. It's the brew house. They have a World Beer Garden there,
Oh, nice.
and it's just a big outdoor where you wander around, drink your beer, take a little tiny hike, sort of
And
thing.
although the one in Liberty Market is smaller, it's like one of the biggest things in the market. It's just this huge thing. It feels like you're in a restaurant on Disney property. Uh,
Yes.
for good or ill. If you like that, you'll love it. If that, I was sort of like in the middle of it. I was like, I appreciated all the effort. Well, you were. I realized you told me that your dad was one of the designers of it, so I'm not trying to denigrate it in any way.
Well, no, the landscaping, one of his company for that he worked at years ago, they were part of that project for the stone in San Marcos area.
And it's quite an achievement. And they
Yes.
also have some really great stuff they do there with trying to keep points of contact minimal. Where they will take you to where you are, and if you're by yourself, you're like there's no one really near you, and you can't order directly from your server. You have to do it
Oh.
on your phone to like find the thing on the menu but there was still aside from that though, the servers were very friendly and gave me some good advice. I wound up having the Chocovesa Tres Leches when I was there.
Ooh, that sounds very much like a Captain Beer.
What I mean, I think I think I had Chocovesa
I was gonna
on
say,
the
I
show
think you
last year.
may have, yeah.
That's always one of my favorite ones every year. This was the Tres Leches thing, and I actually have seen it at. Well, let's do another plug for our sponsors here.
Wait, the Beer and Cheese Collective?
I did see it at the Beer and Cheese Collective as soon as I got back, so I'm glad to know that I'll get another taste of it. But it was great to get that on draft right there at the source.
Nice.
And then from there, I got a lift down to Little Italy,
Okay.
where I visited another Ballast Point because I just hadn't gotten enough the other day before that, and wound up having there. Oh, they had a really good. I'd gotten so much out of my system with the flight 2 days before. I know, actually, I didn't talk much about their other Ballast Point. Ballast Point in Miramar is just a really great experience. We mentioned about how a lot of those places in Miramar are so industrial, but then all of a sudden you go take a right, take a left, and what do you know? Here's a tasting room.
Right.
And yet, both Ballast Point and AleSmith really put a lot into making the place its own real experience, making it a destination.
Right.
And that's why I was so impressed with Ballast Point when I got there. The one in Little Italy is nice. It's a much more smaller scale. It feels just more like a bar. I think they brew beers there as well, I'm now, Phil. This is I know this is a bit of a tangent here, but I've heard a lot of really interesting stories about what Ballast Point has been through over the
Right.
last 5 or 6 years, and I had
Yeah.
not heard of this at all. I recently, I mean, when we were getting it on the East Coast, Victory at Sea has been one of my very favorite ones. I look on Untapped, and I've logged a lot of them between like 2014 and maybe 2017. I remember at one point when the Beer and Cheese Collective was called Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, they had a big thing there where they had like a whole tap takeover event. I have a souvenir glass from that event, but hadn't seen them much around here for a while. But I realized part of that was it was I heard every place I went and I talked about it. I heard another version. Heard a few other like speculations and weird details. Apparently, so they were bought at some point by some company for $1 billion.
Yeah, it was a big sale. I forget the name of the company. It's like Gold Star or Blue Star Distribution.
But some place that was more interested in having a macro than a micro approach.
Yeah, and I think that they're out of like Australia or Indonesia or New Zealand. Something tells me
wow.
that's where they're from. But yeah, it's like Blue Star or Gold Star. Don't quote me on any of this.
Yeah.
Distribution company, and they bought up Ballast Point, and
almost ran them into the ground. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
I'm not sure all the details, but all I know is they went from being craft brewery to being like a macro. They got bought out, and so they were like basically on the same level as Budweiser and Miller and Coors.
Well, and someone told me that because of that, unlike what you see with like something that's like Goose Island, it sounds like they probably messed with it a little too much. Maybe the beer wasn't as good for a while.
Yeah, I think they might have lost some of that integrity of their product, and yeah, I don't know. I personally loved Ballast Point when I was in San Diego and living in San Diego and started drinking. Let's see here, I turned 21 probably 2000 and God, what the heck year was that? 2010, 2011?
Yeah, that was when it
And
was at just yeah.
Mhm.
and there was of course still craft back then. Same with Green Flash. They were still craft. And then Green Flash got bought out.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
I didn't
Yep.
realize that. Oh, that's too
Yep.
bad.
Green Flash got bought out after they had bought Alpine. And yeah, again, I kind of stopped drinking them after they got bought out because I prefer to give my money to the craft beer scene.
I will say what
But,
appears to be a happy ending, though, to the whole Ballast Point saga,
Right.
though, is that eventually they ran it into the ground so much that someone, a little more indie kind of place in Chicago, bought them for like maybe a tenth of what they were. I think they bought them for like $1 million or something.
Oh wow!
And they have them back on track towards becoming more of the craft thing that they were
Oh,
born into,
okay.
and so they seem to be back on track to becoming, it's been a period of adjustment, but they're still standing, and
That's good.
I had a great experience there, and hopefully some of their stuff will make it to the East Coast again.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
actually, Beer Wonder, you were saying that you've been seeing their Sculpin here.
I have been seeing their
yeah.
Sculpin, yeah.
So yeah, so
which I really enjoy. So
if they can send their Sculpin here, they can get back to sending their Victory at Sea here as well.
yeah, they can.
Yeah, I remember it was 2013, and I was doing my birthday brew tour, and I had all my buddies meet up. We started at Stone, and then
Mhm.
we went down to Ballast Point, and then we went to Green Flash, and that was like the trifecta. We did the 3 breweries that one day, and by the time I got to Green Flash, they handed me my beer, and I took it, and it just dropped on my on my hand and shattered on the ground.
Oh
I
my
was that drunk, and I was
goodness.
like, "You're cut off." And then all my guests went and bought me a beer anyways, so I still was drinking. It was a good birthday.
Sounds
That
like
sounds
Got it.
what you
excellent.
remember of it anyway.
Yes, yes, and I remember it. So
Well, there you go. Well, I'll be honest. I remember the second interesting beer that I had. Now, this was in a little town called Sacramento. Guy Phil, I don't know if you're familiar with them.
a little bit. Little
Okay,
bit.
yeah. I heard they were called the Inland Empire. That they're part of that. area?
Yeah, that whole definition. I think it just includes like the whole San Joaquin Valley area, all the way down to Ventura. I think I don't know.
Yeah, well, I was impressed by Sacramento. I mean, it was a nice little town, and we were working at a club called Badlands, which is actually a drag club. So our second show was there, and as the host of this show, I'm given a beverage of choice, and so I told the bartender, to surprise me. And word had gotten to them that I enjoy things that were a little bit more local, a little bit more crafty, and so I didn't get a chance to see it poured, but it came to me in this very unique looking beer glass. It had a very long stem, and it was almost goblet style. I was really intrigued by sort of how the presentation, and
Oh,
it
kind
was
of like what they have at Finback.
This sounds
sort of
like
like
more
sorry.
wine. This
No,
sounds
no, no,
more
no, no,
like
no. They assured me that this one was from a local Sacramento area brewery.
Are they
Um,
from a brewery, not
yeah,
a
well,
vineyard.
no. They said it was it was
a,
locally made alcohol, and so
a brewing type facility locally. Okay, yes.
yeah, exactly. Really, really authentic. It was. I thought it was going to be more of a captain style beer. I was, because it had this sort of darker color to it. And it was so interesting to have something in like a goblet environment. And so
Sure.
I took a sip, and I thought it was really very, very sweet, kind of fruity in a really interesting way. Again, not a lot of carbonation, so I figured maybe it was a cask ale of some sort. And when I asked the bartender what it was called, he said that it was called. It was really hard to pronounce, but I think it's either Shiraz,
Shiraz
Syrah.
or
That's
it was either Shiraz or Syrah, because those are pretty. That's pretty much depending on where it's made. Those are both two different kinds of red wine.
of red wine.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's the
trick
same
you.
grapes, but they're called different things on different continents. But
Oh, okay. All
yeah,
right.
Shiraz
they
and
trick you.
Syrah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
But
no
what
matter
was
what,
it a good wine? Was it a good wine?
I thought it was very tasty. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
really did. It got. I mean, I was buzzed very quickly, so I figured it was like a high alcohol product of some sort. But anyway, I was very impressed. Again, locally made in that sort of like Sacramento area. The I believe they were calling it Napa based. It was yeah. I
Oh,
was thinking
yeah.
it said that has something to do with cabbage, but you know.
Yeah,
Right,
I went to
right.
the last California wedding I went to was in that area, and
Mm-hmm.
it was in we flew into Sacramento, but the wedding was in Davis,
Okay.
and wound up doing a lot of nice vineyards visits there.
Oh, nice.
To be honest, yeah, the last time I was in the area you're in, I only had wine too, mostly I think. But
Oh, okay. All right.
I
Well, you
don't
know,
blame you.
no, I
yeah.
mean
I
I
don't
didn't. I'm
blame
playing.
you
That's
one
all you had. I'm
bit.
sure you're getting
No,
some interesting beers, but
of
yeah.
course. I mean, here's the thing. We clearly had two misses so far, but you know, the
Oh
last
yeah.
one, I think was a real winner.
Which one is that?
Okay, so we were in Benicia, and
Oh, okay.
Bruggeifel, I don't know how familiar you are with Benicia.
Oh yeah, yeah. You used to drive by it all the time on
I'm sure
commute from work. Yep.
yeah, you know, it seems like a very small town, and it was sort of a little bit industrial. And we were at a place called the Cellar,
Okay.
and that was our final location.
So a lot of
And
aged beers.
exactly, that's which is sort of what we were looking at. And now I checked on the Cellar's Instagram, aged beers, cellared beers. This was going to be a really great thing, and I saw that they had been to a brewery that I think is in Berkeley called Fieldworks Brewing Company.
Yeah.
Um, and they make really interesting beers. I think I've had
Yeah.
one or two here um, in New York. Phil, I don't know if that's a regular spot for you.
I love field work. Yeah, I used to go there quite regularly. Now that I'm in the South Bay, there's not really a location close enough,
Hmm.
but hopefully they'll open something somewhere soon.
Nice. Well, so we did the show there, and it was great. And at the very end, they offered me, you know, I said, you know, I'm looking for something really local. I want to try the best selection, and they handed me this one was interestingly in a like a straight sided glass. So that was kind of interesting. It was sort of, you know, this was sort of a, like funky, kind of cool, like relaxed environment. So, and again, darker than I was anticipating, lower carbonation level, but a really nice sort of like they told me it was like this is the most prevalent beer you're going to find in California, and it had a two-part name. Let me see if I can remember what it was. Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, it's another wine.
That's another
Yeah,
wine.
another wine. Yeah, a
Yeah,
great
you have
wine.
another wine there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Cab
yeah,
Sav, Cab Franc,
Thanks.
Cabernets, or California Cabernet. You can't go wrong with that
yeah,
if you're looking for wine.
yeah.
Again, very low carbonation,
Very low carbonation. Yeah, really smooth
not
though.
much hop,
No,
no hops.
very tannic though. I really I saw that parallel with hops. So all right, so the beer wonder's not an idiot. I know that I only drank wine, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
real
But it sounds like you had a very spirited trip nonetheless.
I did have a very spirited trip. We were bouncing all over in so many different locations that unfortunately I wasn't able to get to any vineyards. And I was with a group of people who are not huge beer people, which is totally
Yeah.
fine. And so oftentimes we were trying out the wine scene. And this was my first experience in the Napa area, and I was wowed as someone who doesn't particularly enjoy wine in general. It's not usually my first go-to. It actually gave me a little bit more of an interesting taste for it, and I don't know if there's something about the freshness, the fact that I was in the area, the fact that I was around all of the vineyards, but it didn't it kind of brought me back to enjoying that. So believe it or not, since I got back to New York, I have actually been balancing a little bit more of my beer drinking with more of my wine drinking after a little bit of a California wine adventure. Now, I'd hope to get to Russian River. I'd hope to hit some of the, you know, spots
I
that
guess this just means you have to go back.
yeah,
You'll have to
clearly,
come back.
clearly. It just means that a return trip is in order.
Yes, we'll have
So.
to take you around and show you all the good spots.
Well, Bruggeifel, I was going to say, don't, you know, be careful what you wish for, because I may take you up on that for sure.
Yes, that particular area, there's a lot of good breweries. Cooperage is known for their barrel aging and their sour beers. There's Hen House,
Hmm.
which is not a macro brewery, although they'd fool you because they distribute throughout the whole West Coast. Really solid beers on a regular schedule. Lagunitas is out there, which is always a fun stop.
Yep.
Very classic California brewery. And then, like you said, Russian River, great beers. Keeps coming out with new stuff. Vinny is great. And so, yeah, a lot of good beers in that area, a lot of good tap rooms in that area. And then when you get to the East Bay, it just gets better. So, yeah, you'll have to come visit.
Clearly, well, I have an expectation that as the world continues to open up, I may make my way back to California to actually drink beer this next time.
Now, there's a
While I'm out
chance
there.
that I'll be in the East Coast this summer. There's a
What?
chance. Yes.
Oh
My
my goodness.
family, majority of my family is from the East Coast. My dad's from Brooklyn, actually.
Mm.
And a lot of my family is still in that area. And there's a family reunion, and they're going to be in Delaware, Rehoboth Beach, I think.
Yeah, nice place.
And then out to Jersey, I think they said Cape May. So I'd hope to get an extra week after I'm done with family stuff to come and see like Equilibrium and Other Half and Finback and all those breweries in the New York area.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. Well, speaking of other breweries, it looks like you have another beer there, Phil.
Oh my goodness, very
Yes.
exciting.
This is another one from Humble Sea. They're
Ooh,
kind
good
of my
crack.
new local brewery since I moved. I don't know if anyone's a Dragon Ball Z fan, but they call this one Dragon Ball C. And like I said, all their beers have the most ridiculously punny names. They have Shrimp Don't Kill My Vibe, or Shrimp Don't Krill My Vibe. That's what it is.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Snoop Frog. Yeah, just Are You Afraid of the Shark? They're based in Santa Cruz.
Now hold that up while you're pouring it, Phil.
Yeah, let's
Oh,
see.
yes,
Let's
yes,
see
yes.
that pour.
Yes, I got my fieldwork glass. I should turn that around so I don't.
Oh, field work. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, beautiful. Very nice.
Yeah, so this
Clearly
is
there's some greens in there.
yes. This is 8.5% double dry hop.
Oh wow, beautiful can too. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
It's Cashmere, Mosaic, Eldorado, and Citra.
Ooh, fun.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, as long as you're doing second pours, I know we're not quite out of out of LA, out of California just yet. We might have a little more to talk about there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to bring us halfway across the country here with a
Sponsored pour.
sponsored pour from the Beer and Cheese Collective, formerly Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars. This is from our friend.
35-11 Ditmars.
Yes, and it is in New York, but this is sort of, since we're starting to move across the country again. We're in the Midwest, and we have three Floyds here.
Oh,
It is
okay.
let's see here. It's a Cherry Canis Invertus. It is a
Mm.
Flemish style red ale brewed with cherries.
Oh, fun.
Oh, look, I have my tap room bottle opener right here.
Oh, lovely. Is this a Tavor delivery from you, or? Oh no, this is
No,
sponsored pour. It's a sponsored.
This is
pour.
a sponsored pour,
Yeah.
and this is because since I'm now an investor in Taproom, they sent me this nice little bit of swag there.
Oh, nice.
All right, so let's take a look at this.
Oh, coming out of a bottle, very nice. Oh, it's
There.
pouring very quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Flemish red.
yep,
Here we
yeah.
go.
That's beautiful right there. Yeah, it's got that nice sort of like brownish, slightly reddish color. I do.
And the
always
cherries
love
are
that.
really strong. Really strong cherry nose.
I
to
can
it.
imagine. That sounds like a good fall winter time beer. Sounds like a good, honestly, Thanksgiving beer.
I think so. Yes. You might be hearing this a week or so after Thanksgiving, but we are recording this Thanksgiving week. So aside from our California being our primary theme, but I guess Thanksgiving could be a secondary. And we're thankful we're able to get together and have all these beers today. Phil, do you have any last questions about my? Because I know there's so much more. If there's, I don't want to like spend another half hour talking about all these things. So, is there anything you really want to know about my California San Diego trip?
What was your favorite brewery out of the whole lot that you visited?
Good question.
Okay, so I would say that AleSmith and Ballast Point really met expectations in a big way. So it was like, I feel that's almost a boring answer because those are the main reasons I went to that area, but they were also really good. Modern Times was very well recommended, and I didn't know what to expect at all there, and had a really wonderful time there. Also, it was interesting going to Pizza Port. You told me about that place because they had some really nice beer. I kind of got lost on my way there because I think I put the wrong address in. When you initially told me, I put the wrong address into my phone, and so it sent me totally on the wrong direction. So I wound up like going up and down to get there because I went to the place that they originally were. Pizza Port is also the original home of Stone. That was where their very
Oh,
first
wow.
place, right?
Yeah, it's all of that was kind of port brewing, and that turned into Lost Abbey,
But
and
before
then
it was
they
that, it was Stone. I mean, there's got a big plaque on the wall saying this is where the very first Stone beer was ever brewed.
maybe the location, yes,
Yeah, I
maybe
think that's what it
the
is.
where
Yeah,
Stone was originally
yeah.
brewing, and then Pizza Port took over the location. Yeah, yeah, and then somehow it split into Lost Abbey, which split into the hop concept. So there's quite a tradition of beer in that area.
And that same day, I had a really nice experience right around the corner from there. Was I went to Culture, had a nice export stout,
Oh
uh,
yes.
and had a very pleasant conversation out in their backyard area. It was like they were just opening for the day, and there was some guy who was on a long bike ride to stop there. So I talked to him for a while there, comparing various notes, and that was great. I will say, I'm going to say again, Jacked Up was just a really nice, unexpected pleasure. The place, that first beer I had.
Nice.
I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, yeah, had a really good time there. Is there anything else? Look at so I did. I feel like this is not necessarily the biggest highlight, but I had a wonderful time there. I'm going to combine these two things here a little bit.
Okay.
So there was one of the places that was recommended even from the very first time I went there when I went to White Labs, a place that was not on your list that you gave me. They told me about a place called Gravity Heights,
Oh, yeah,
which is
okay,
sort
yeah,
of
I've heard of it.
it's weird. It's like kind of it's in Miramar, but it's not in quite as industrial place as some of the other ones. It's sort of like in a little office park thing.
Hmm.
And There was the woman behind the bar. We were just talking, and I was saying why I was in town, that I was going to Lake Elsinore for a wedding, and she was from Lake Elsinore. And then I got into a nice conversation with the guy next to me, and I was saying, yeah, I'm heading up there, and I hadn't managed to get to Belching Beaver, and he'd mentioned that there was a place in Vista, which is kind of on the way to Lake Elsinore. So similar
Mhm.
sort of situation, stopping off at a place because I know my hotel might not be ready by the time I get there.
Mm.
And I went to that place, and it's funny, Phil. Have you heard this? The one that people are always talking about with Belching Beaver is their peanut butter stout.
Yes,
And
yes.
I'm not really that into peanut butter beers. I like them sometimes. I
Mhm.
don't other times. And the ones I had an oyster stout there,
Oh, interesting.
called Shuckin' Awesome.
Uh-huh.
And I had it's just funny because I think this is a great name, but I'm curious to see, since you're both, I think you two are about the same age, uh, and but they had a beer called Unfrozen Caveman Lager. Do you get the joke?
Yeah, I know there's a South Park
I was
episode.
gonna say, is there
Yeah,
I remember it from SNL. Wasn't there an
that's it. That's
Unfrozen
it exactly.
Caveman
Okay.
Where it went here.
Lawyer?
Unfrozen
Yeah,
Caveman Lawyer was a Phil Hartman character.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh.
Mhm.
It's if I had a button to play the theme, so I'm just going to sing it a little bit. It's like, he used to be a caveman, but now he's a lawyer. Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer, and that's how every sketch started. And yeah, it was all about anyway. But I thought it was a really nice deep cut for a reference.
Yeah.
And the bartender appreciated me explaining it to him as well, because until I did, he thought it was about Encino Man,
Oh my gosh. Oh my
which was a
gosh.
Pauly Shore movie.
That's funny.
That's a 90s kid, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is that because of that, and because it was a dark beer, I just assumed it was like a black lager, but it was actually Doppelbock. But the
Oh,
name isn't
interesting.
the name wasn't entirely off base, because it was Doppelbock is a lager, so it fits, and
Yep.
had a really nice time there. I don't know if the name Belching Beaver is supposed to be a bit of an innuendo, but once you start to thinking of it being an innuendo, you can't
Ooh,
stop.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's an image right there.
Yeah. I mean, at least they went with the double innuendo and not calling it the queefing something or other.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know
Belching.
what's going on there.
Yes, exactly. But
Sometimes it's best not to ask.
Yeah.
but yeah, so I really like the combination of going to those two places. And I also, you mentioned about Green Flash. I did have a really nice time there. I will have to say that the beer there itself is not so much in my wheelhouse. Sometimes that doesn't matter. There, I found they're so committed to the traditional West Coast IPA that I
Yes.
couldn't quite connect with the beer there. But everyone there was really, really nice. Had kind of a fun thing happen where I was just, I think I took a picture of their menu and put it on Instagram right away. And while I was sitting at the bar, I saw a guy, because there's some really, really nice, the way they have them where the hand drawn tiles with all the stuff. And I saw a guy making some of those. And so I took a picture of it, took it. And my friend Jared, who runs Sweet Avenue, who's going to be a future guest on the show, respond on Instagram, hey, really like those menus because they're similar to the style that he does his in. And so I was able to go and tell the guy, like, hey, a guy who does this in New York saw it. And then I showed him some of Jared's. And so they had that. They each got to admire each other's work across the coast. And I thought that was a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Very cool. Did you make it to Electric out in Lake Elsinore?
I did not. I think you sent me a text the morning I was leaving Lake Elsinore telling me to go there. But the thing is, it was like I couldn't really get to anywhere on Saturday because that was the day of the wedding.
Right.
So it's like guys, you don't mind if I take a break or just go visit a?
Gonna go hit the brewery. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just there was so much about because I was helping out. I was not in the wedding party, but I was helping out with stuff. I had jobs to do, so I had to. It was a 4:00 wedding that I had to get there at 2:00 for, and it was a good time. And then the next day was recovering from that, and also just going back to the same house and everyone having sort of a after wedding party kind of deal. And by the time I left on Monday, Electric wasn't open again until Wednesday, and I was leaving on Tuesday.
Right.
So again, another reason to go back.
Exactly.
Had a very good time everywhere I went. And I know I did actually. I spoke briefly about the airport. What was really great about it was not just that all the beers at the airport bar were local. It's the fact that the bartender knew exactly how to steer macro-brained people to micro stuff that would be a good equivalent.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I had something. I didn't make it to Harland ever, but I had a Harland beer there, and had another one that I seem not to have recorded. But I just remember at some point, like a guy sitting next to me. This wasn't the only. I saw this happen 2 or 3 times. This is just the one I remember. The guy was sitting next to me. He said, "Oh yeah, do you have any Stella?" And he says, "Well, actually, everything here is local, but I think you might like this rice lager." And he gave it to him. The guy loved it. It was great. So yeah, I mean, that's that. Yeah.
We had this happen. So the captain and I were at the Pony Bar, which, as the listeners know, is one of our favorites. And we watched the exact same thing happen when someone asked for a Guinness the other night. And I think that is the mark of a true excellent craft beer tender, is the person who can quickly turn things around and introduce people to the craft options. So hats off.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's rather than like just not being like, oh no, we don't have it, or being like, oh no, we don't have it. Those are 2 different things.
Exactly.
One is ignorance. One is snobbery. Rather than like, no, but I think we can help you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like that is a great craft bartender. Like, okay, you might actually like what I'm going to recommend better, but you will recognize what you're looking for in the taste. So
and also welcome to craft beer.
Yeah, right, I mean, I've seen among other people. I've seen Sarah at the Beer and Cheese Collective do that on many occasions, and it's hey, welcome. This might be a little unfamiliar, but we're cool too.
Well, we're gonna make this happen for you. It's all good.
We can all find something. We have beer. We have beer here. So what more? Don't worry. It might not be a name you recognize, but we'll all have a good time.
I tell you though, out here on the West Coast, nothing's more cringy than when you're out hiking in the woods and you come across someone's spot where they had posted up the night before, and it's just a bunch of empty Stella bottles just littering up the forest. And you're like, you damn kids. You don't even drink good beer. What are you doing? Like, we got our 6-pack of Stella out on a hike and we're going to get drunk out in the woods and just leave our trash here. And you're like, you little bastards.
But Phil, let's be honest. You'd be just as pissed off if it were a 6-pack of Harland rice lagers.
Right. Yeah, true. But I'm just like, oh man, Stella, huh?
If you're going to do it, at least do it right.
I suppose that's the mentality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's the end of our California story, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I was going to ask if anyone has any fun weekend beer, either upcomings or past goings that they'd like to share.
Well, we sort of sidestepped into it, but we did have a wonderful time last night at the Pony Bar.
Very
It was
true.
great seeing Dan. If
Yep.
you don't know who we're talking about, listen to episode 48.
Yep. I
When
had
Dan
8
McLaughlin.
tacos. 8
I was
tacos.
impressed. I only had 2.
I know. Here's the thing: when you get $2 tacos and they're as good, they're not California tacos, Brew Guy Phil. Let's be very clear.
Oh,
This is
man.
a New York attempt on a taco, so it's a solid like 6 relative to what California can produce. But
As long as there's no ketchup and mayonnaise on it,
Mhm.
we're solid.
nope, comes with a
Okay.
lime. You got a shrimp option, carnitas. You can do the whole thing.
There
But
you
yeah,
go.
they were fantastic. They were really excellent, and I had 4 beers. I think you may have had more than that, Captain.
I think I did. That's probably why I didn't have room for as many tacos.
Oh my gosh.
Fair.
Last time I went to San Diego, I tried to do 24 tacos in 24 hours, and
Oh,
holy
wow.
shit, I did it. But man, that was intense.
Now, how big are
Well,
these tacos?
They're
They're
big,
street
yeah.
tacos, street
Oh,
tacos.
they're little guys. Okay, yeah,
They're
that's what
little
we were
guys.
having. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
still
but
Yeah,
little
some
tacos.
of those street tacos can be pretty thick. I mean,
That's
because
true.
we have
Yeah.
really great taco trucks in New York.
That's
There's
true.
a place around the corner from me that seems to have disappeared, and I grieve their loss every day. But generally
Cheers.
speaking, if you're going to a taco truck in New York, your standard order is 3.
Yep.
Yep. Sounds
It'll
about
be
right.
like 3 for anywhere between $10 to $15.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and I noticed right away they seemed a little more expensive in California. However, they were heartier.
Yeah.
Like when I was at AleSmith, they had a great taco truck there, and I did like 3 like carne asada tacos there, and they were really really good. But I also thought like I would have been okay with 2 of these. I happily ate all 3, but 2
Yes.
probably would have been enough.
Yes. Any fish tacos?
Did I have any fish tacos? I didn't have any fish tacos, but at the Belching Beaver, I had a fish burrito.
There you go.
Yep.
That's
I
what
did
matters.
have fish tacos at the cellar in Benicia, and they were quite good with
Yes,
my unique beer.
yes.
At AleSmith, I know I didn't mention this before, but part of the reason I have very, very limited notes about my whole experience there was because I was doing nothing but flights, nothing but sample pours. Because if I tried to do, even that, I was feeling very well when I went out of there
Oh, nice.
because it was just so good and so many I wanted to order. One of them actually was a collaboration with Omegang.
Oh, wow.
And I asked him if that was being sold on the East Coast, and he said it's a combination of the Speedway Stout and the Three Philosophers. And he said there were definitely some barrels of that on the East Coast, but I don't think it made it much far out of Cooperstown.
Okay. Well, that seems reasonable.
Yeah. All right, so I know one thing I definitely wanted to talk about as well in our wrapping up our whole week in beer. We do
Yes.
have a hookup that needs to be mentioned.
Oh, very important. Got to get those hookups in.
So last week we were talking about Folksbier and how they are no longer somehow they just vanished very quickly. No one
So
has
sad.
a lot of answers. And Huck mentioned something about how he'd been trying to find answers, and he went to all his usual resources, including the incredible beer blog Brew York,
Yes.
and said he couldn't find anything there. And Brew York actually reached out back to us and said that he actually did write something about them. But he also is frustrated as we are, just doesn't have a whole lot of information. But he definitely posted everything he could and noted and grieved their passing. It was in their October 28th edition. So,
Oh, wow.
Brew York, we regret the error. And well, first of all, the one silver lining in all of this is like he listens to our show.
I know. How sweet is that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I'm because what I do is I tagged him on our Twitter post for the release to let him know that we mentioned him in the show, and
Right.
and he listened and thank you. And if there's anything we do, I also did text with Huck, and he wants to express his personal apologies to you for getting that wrong. And if there's anything we can do to make it up to you, in fact, if you want to come on the show,
Yeah, I was
be
gonna
our
say.
guest, we would certainly be happy to do it in that way.
Yes, please come on and let us know all of your beer glory, and we can correct our wrongs against you with that. But here's the thing: if you're not, in that position, and you're just a fellow beer venger drinking along with us, and you'd like to get in touch with us, Captain, how can the fine people out there in the world find us?
Well, I mean, I got to start from Twitter because that's where Brew York, same way that Brew York reached out to us, right there at the Beer Vengers. At the Beer Vengers is a way you can find us on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook. If you're a little more traditional, if you're old, I guess traditional is like old, like some of us who still. Well, I mean, yeah, it's. I still do check my email. I know with Phil sometimes I have to reach out to him on Instagram to tell him to check his emails. But I know that's how you kids do these things these days. So
The gram is real. The gram is real.
I'm a digital dinosaur apparently. Used to be only analog people were dinosaurs. Now there are digital versions of the dinosaurs. But yeah, you can reach out to us at thebeervengers@gmail.com. And any of those places, hopefully we will see it. I almost missed the thing on Twitter. That's how much of a digital dinosaur I am. I just looked at like, because it's hard to see sometimes when people respond. But yeah.
Now, did you get an email saying that you had a message on Twitter? Because that's really the full encapsulation of all of this.
I honestly did not. It was like about an hour before we were recording, and I said, I wonder if I got any feedback from posting, because I like all the places we've talked about today. When I edit the show, I write down everything we talked about so I can tag them all on Twitter when I do it. So I was like, hey, I wonder if we got any feedback from that. And I clicked on it like an hour before we recorded. I'm like, here's Brew York, and we got something wrong. So
ouch.
That's all right. We like I said, I'm glad he found us worthy of listening to, because I honestly I've gotten a lot of information from Brew York. Not so much recently. I check it out at my leisure, but when I first started beer venturing seriously, I was always looking for places that were doing tap takeovers. And I remember he always had like a great calendar list of this is happening at this place, like in Barcade in Brooklyn on Tuesday, and this is happening at the Blind Tiger on Thursday. It was great. So glad that we're all
Gotham
in touch
beer
with each other.
drinkers, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, do you have any final thoughts?
I'm just glad to be here with you again, and I guess in the spirit of the season, I'm thankful to have shared some of that California knowledge of beer with you all.
Well, thank you. I think that's a wonderful note to end on. Unless you have anything else, Beer Wonder.
Well, just one little thing, Brew Guy Phil.
No more wine.
Oh yeah,
no more wine first. Yes, but most importantly, come back anytime.
Oh, absolutely, come back anytime. This has been great.
Yes, I'll have to reach out again maybe in the spring and see what's happened between now and then. Last time I was on the show, I was unemployed, and now I've got a new job and I moved to a new area of the state, and who knows what'll happen by spring. So
exactly. Well, and of course, when you're out here on the East Coast, make sure that you come and say hi, because we'll take you out for to show you some of our favorite of the Gotham beer scene.
Absolutely. Always looking for any excuse, but always great to see you in person as well. It'll be nice. All right. Well, thanks. Sure. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Beer Wonder. Thanks all the Beer Avengers out there listening and following and downloading, and like and subscribe whenever you can. And look, hey, I think
Huck, a wild Huck has wandered in.
Hey Huck, you're just in time. Why don't you play us out? Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
With the beer Vengers, beer Vengers, beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.